What would Norman Rockwell art look like depicting 2023? In this video, my friend Carson and I took a look at these AI images generated in the style of the famous American artist Norman Rockwell depicting modern problems. Carson is a good friend of mine, and I decided to have Carson on today because we were going to be looking at the AI generated images that have been making the rounds on Twitter and Instagram of these modern problems depicted in Norman Rockwell's art style. Carson, you're familiar with Norman Rockwell, right?
Yes, I'm familiar with Norman Rockwell. I love him.
Yeah, and you'd think everyone would be familiar because he's such an iconic painter of the American lifestyle, American culture. But one of my professors actually asked who we thought the most influential or some of the most prominent 20th century painters are, and I said Norman Rockwell, and I just got the fluoride stare. Like, no one knew who I was talking about, which was just an absolute travesty in my eyes, at least. Are you a fan of Rockwell? What do you like about Rockwell's paintings?
Yeah, I love Rockwell. I mean, he's like, all of his paintings and pretty much most of his art is just so depictive of Americana, like just embodied. It represents American excellence. Like, you see these paintings and it brings you back to that time in which we were excellent, in which we valued excellent things. And I don't know, just the entire style evicts that sort of feeling.
Yeah, it makes you want to strive for something better, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes these AI images so bizarre, is this juxtaposition between Rockwell's normal, like, striving for excellence and the, you know, banality and really horror of modern America. So if we want to look at some of these, first off, I think this is the first one I saw. It's a black guy stealing the toaster
Oh yeah.
out of the convenience store and everyone's clapping.
It's honest. I don't even know if it's applauding. Like, really, everybody does it as like this. It's like a drone mentality of applauding it. It's not really. Nobody believes that that's a righteous or just thing to do. Just we don't value justice anymore. So like, when that void is gone, we replace it with this like human concocted idea of social justice, which isn't justice. It's a total perversion of the word justice itself. It values like the feelings of the losers of society, which have historically like been the people who haven't been included in the ruling power. And it just shifts it. It's a total Marxist idea.
Yeah,
of,
I was just about to say it's that Marxist power dynamic
of allowing certain evils to be committed against the majority because historic evils have been committed against a minority. And so I don't even know if it's like we're celebrating it. We're just like doing it because we're told that we should celebrate it.
Yeah, and maybe some people they just kind of go along because they know that if they were to stop the guy stealing the toaster, he would turn around and stab them, like that leftist journalist recently. That's kind of what happens. That's like the logical conclusion of allowing this kind of behavior to persist. I think.
And like, the worst part is that like, not even like all of the problems are like this is what's so maddening about social justice and how it's so like disconnected from any actual idea of justice, which justice can only exist in a Christian society. And we can talk about that a little bit, but like, what's so maddening about this stuff is that they're not like, it's not like the problems are like so unbearable. It's not like they're unsolvable. It's not like, you know, there's like, it's not like this guy is stealing it with just such amounts of force that we've never seen before. It's just the fact that they're like criminalizing the solutions. They're criminalizing cures. And that's what's maddening about the left nowadays. They criminalize the cures. They criminalize the solutions. You can't defend yourself. We're going to victimize the victims, and we're going to empower the predators. That's exactly what like social justice does, and it's just so repulsive, man. I hate it.
And what did Trump say recently? He said we could solve the rioting and the stealing overnight if we just shot them.
Oh yeah. What was the line? When the looting starts, the shooting starts.
There's another one here. It's the second one. It's almost like an American Gothic, kind of like that, but in Rockwell style, with the houses burning.
But this painting looks nightmarish, dude.
This looks
freaky.
awful. I mean, it's really horrifying, but I don't think totally far off from what's going on. Not just the riots from people that live here already, but the massive influx of people coming in and expecting to be accommodated for.
Burning down our homes. You're the villain in that situation because you don't want your house burned down.
I think that's where the Rockwell style really clashes with this is because the Rockwell paintings often depict family and community as this homogenous unit, you know, of people who believe the same things, who have a shared culture and care about each other. And that's what's so striking, I think, about, you know, the AI paintings like these, is because it totally shatters that notion that a nation is kind of like a family. We don't think about that anymore. We're so atomized and so individualized, then what does it matter that we don't share anything? We don't have anything in common. I think what Rockwell depicts is this obligation to care about the people around you.
Dude, that is so real. I was thinking about that one, you know, the Rockwell painting. This one kept popping in my head where it's like the Thanksgiving meal, or I don't even know if that's Thanksgiving, but it's just like, it looks like it. That's what our modern Thanksgiving, but it could have just been a random meal. But it really reminds me of that one. And it's just like people have just lost community nowadays. Nobody knows what like it means to have community. And I even like experienced that at my old school and in college. Like nobody, especially in our age group, knows what it's like to have community, to have like a shared cultural identity with people.
Yeah.
And like, because we're so, like you said, we're so atomized. Nobody really has anything in common. And like even at my school now, where people have like a sense of community because we're all like united in the faith, people are super desocialized to where if you're walking down the street, like somebody like you're coming down the opposite ways, somebody will just
they won't
like
say anything to you.
Yeah, dude, they'll look straight ahead. They'll be like, I don't see you, you're not actually here. Just to like avoid that awkward interaction. And nobody's willing to like humiliate themselves or like just engage in any risk whatsoever in social activity. And we've lost that sense of community. And like, we are probably the most antisocial generation now. And that's why they're able to like, that's honestly like what Americana is about, is the sense of community. Cause that's what it's built off of, a common community and Christian identity.
Yeah. A lot of people, they have this, I think, false conception that what it means to be American is to be free and like individual and just completely unfettered from any sort of obligation. But I don't think that's accurate at all. That you used to just have this level of care about your neighbor and like what was going on in your community, and now people are called like Karens. You know, it's this really this anti-white slur for you to expect or like want to know about what's going on in your community and the people that are going in and out of it, and like actually caring about decorum and standards and stuff. You know, it's just, we can't have that anymore. It's like we're not allowed. We're forced into isolation.
Yeah. And I mean, like historically, like the reason that maintaining a cultural identity is so important in countries, like this is why China for centuries would not interact with any single foreign power, any single foreign culture, is because whenever you do that and you like essentially make people into individuals, it weakens the whole, and then you're essentially just able to be like preyed upon by various forces that do have that common cultural identity. And then in this painting, that's literally what's happening. Like you have these two individuals who are like, you know, we're individuals, and then there's this horde of people who don't view themselves as individuals, who are saying we're the mob, we're the mob, and we're gonna take over, and they do. They're burning the house.
Yeah, so, where are their neighbors coming into the
Yeah, exactly. Because like, dude, a united culture, it provides you with certain outlook on how to deal with, like a common outlook on how we're going to deal with this problem. People don't understand that. We as Americans, we've historically dealt with problems the same way because we have that American mindset. We have that American cultural understanding and that common idea of how we deal with problems. And now that we're all individuals and we're all relativists, we don't have that anymore. So nobody does anything.
And I think there's also this understanding that problems that affect your neighbors are going to affect you. And that you have an obligation to help your neighbors, not just out of goodwill, but also because the problems affecting them are probably like down the line going to affect you.
Jaws, but how does this affect you personally?
Speaking of isolation, you look at the next painting here, it's this woman with the wine glass and all the cats.
Oh boy.
That's kind of on an even more individual level, is that people aren't just atomized into nuclear families that don't have anything to do with each other. They're atomized on a purely individual level where they're not getting married, they're not having kids, they're totally disconnected from the past and cut off from the future because they're not having any children.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's kind of the scariest part. People don't understand that. I just read this book yeah, I think it's called Sex and Culture or Sex and Civilization. It's by J.D. Unwin, and essentially what he talks about is like once the marriage age of like women and men will reach above a certain age, 28, then you essentially like are on the verge of a civilizational like revolution.
I heard this.
Yeah. And like ours is 32 right now. People are like, women are not getting married until 32 years old. It's a very, very bad sign because sexual frustration. Yeah, dude. And I mean, men nowadays are essentially just relegated to like pornography and whatnot because women are creating this like socially isolated sphere. And, you know, the whole cat lady phenomenon is totally a depiction of that.
Yeah, and the most common thing that you hear from people on their deathbed is, I wish I spent more time with my family. It's never, I wish I had more cats. I wish I
had more Gucci. Wish I had more sex with people I don't know.
My next like big video is on feminism, and in doing research for that, I heard this metric that I think in America we spend $700 million on pet costumes. Isn't that insane? $700 million. People are like, oh, I can't have kids, they're expensive. And they're spending money on like, you know, cat birthday parties and, you know, little costumes for their dog and like dog strollers. This just goes to show that women have a desire to nurture something. They have a desire to mother something. And men, I think, are obligated to be better men when they have a family to take care of. And when you take that away and sex is just transactional and family is just sort of undefined and you don't have any children or you don't have anything to work for, then like what's your purpose in life? Yeah, and then you see the other side of this, the next painting of the guy in his bedroom or office with all the junk food on the floor. For most people, this is in front of their, you know, their gaming PC. It's in their room. They're surrounded by the goy slop, the junk food.
The goys.
They don't have anything going on in their life hardly, but
yeah, this makes it look a lot more luxurious.
Even Rockwell's dystopia looks more pleasant than our own.
This hits home too, because like men have that natural desire for adventure, but now we're just like playing video games. Dude, that's why I've gotten back into Jordan Peterson. I've really liked listening to his lectures. I know it's a lot of people in our new right sphere don't love what he has to say, but he really he's frustrated too, and he has such great takes on the lack of adventure in young men. You know, we're really striving for that, and like you see that in how many men are just playing video games, looking for stories, looking for just male greatness and masculinity, because there are no figures nowadays or stories or characters who just display that amazing sense of masculine adventure. And because we're all freaking sitting in our roofs, we have like this feminized education system. We have this like feminized world where we're just like told to like sit down and, you know, let the women have their time. The future is woman. And like you get dudes like this who just want to kill themselves.
Yeah, the suicide rates, especially young, I think it's the highest killer actually of men between like around 20s all the way to 40s. I'll have to look up that actual stat if that's correct, but even if it's not the highest, it's really high now, and it's because they feel useless. Like I read something recently or heard that the most common point made in a lot of these suicide notes is that they feel useless. They feel like they would be better, that they're like a burden to people around them, which is, you know, it's not true, but the lack, the hopelessness that they feel is absolutely true. And that's totally a societal problem because we don't allow men to apply themselves. All our jobs are being more and more abstracted to the point where they just sit in an office all day and you know, there's no fruit of their labor. You know, we used to have so much more tangible work to be done. I think that contributes a lot to it. And as you mentioned, there's no sense of adventure.
I was thinking about that yesterday. I was like, I was sitting
in activities.
Yeah, no, I was sitting in the chapel yesterday and I'm reading the Bible. And I was like, Jesus has so many parables about like seeds and about, you know, in the Old Testament too, in Isaiah, there's so many various like God likes to use the metaphors of seeds and planting and agriculture and working and
Mhm.
toiling.
And Paul, like his
Why is
athletic
that?
metaphors. Paul
Yeah,
uses
exactly.
he's so many athletic metaphors, and people
Yeah.
think that, it's just okay to sit around on your butt all day.
And also you see a lot of people shifting super, super right wing because nobody has that outlet. There's no outlet in the Republican sphere that's offered that since or until Trump, of us kind
Mhm.
of shifting more and more and more to the right. I mean, there was a poll too that was like, I think it was The Hill. They said like 42% of young men or young college age men, people our age, support the destruction of democracy for a right wing authoritarian government. It's like they're doing this to themselves.
This is what you get when you try and push it on everyone. Everyone realizes that, like, oh, disordered sexual ethics
Yeah.
is not how you properly conduct a society. And I think people are waking up to that. And I think we have to capitalize on that. There was such a patriotic surge after 9/11 that was just not capitalized at all by the right. But I think we have an opportunity right now that we can't miss out on, where we can say, and this is the Trump platform. This is the MAGA platform is saying, like, all these problems that exist, there are real and quite frankly simple solutions to them. We just have to have the balls to actually enact those solutions and say that we are going to have law and order. We're going to have a unified culture. We're going to worship one God, and we're going to do it whether you like it or not. And that's how we make America great again. That's how we return to this Rockwell sense of excellence, is disregarding the opinions of people who want us and our culture to be wiped off the face of the earth.
Dude, I couldn't have said it better myself. And that's also one of the things though. Like the left really, they don't have a whole lot of like tangible power. Really, they're just like, it's super feminized. Because
Yeah.
me and my friend were
Social.
talking about it. Yeah, they're naggers, they're gossip, they rally, and then they shame, or they like, yeah, and like those are the main powers that the left possesses. They don't like possess any tangible power like historical tyrants have. Really, these people are only, their power resides from us believing that they have power. So it's only like an illusion. It's like a cape. And once you break free from that, it's super liberating. So once you just get the balls to say, I'm done with that.
Yeah, you stop caring. Stop caring what they think. Honestly, I think most of the incentive comes from the fact that most churches reinforce the post-war consensus. We've seen this a lot on Twitter recently with these back and forths about, racism and Kenism. Is we have a lot of very effeminized churches who enforce these sort of arbitrary, liberal, Marxist, totally unbiblical standards for looking at the world. And so I think a lot of Christian men are disincentivized from doing what is necessary to push back against the liberal world order, because their churches themselves are just telling them that, like, they need to turn the other cheek and be nice. Is like, I don't think turning the other cheek applies when they're trying to kill your kids.
Yeah.
I really don't think that's what Christ meant.
Yeah, I don't think that's what Christ meant either.
Yeah.
But I mean, the churches do play a big role in that, because liberalism was spearheaded by the weakening of church influence.
Yeah,
I do
and
think that
you
the
have a
church
great
needs-
video on that.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah. Go check that out. Yeah, I mean, liberalism made its inroads through the church in America, and that it spread all throughout. Like, especially in the post-war years, the post-war consensus and its consequences have been a disaster for the Western world. Now we're just like committing suicide slowly. For now, until we come.
Yeah, speaking of suicides, there are a couple paintings on here of just these massively obese people. You could never imagine that someone this large would even have existed in Rockwell's time, much less be depicted in a painting like this. I mean, I think it would be maybe too expensive to waste all that paint just painting one person that large.
Yeah, I know. It's a waste. Like nowadays, it's super hard to really like find good stuff, because like everything is totally fake food. Like everything, all of the Zogslop we'll eat, it's in our institutions and whatnot. Everything is it's all fake. So it's really difficult to go out and seek that good nutritious stuff, and it's expensive too. So I feel bad for them. Is this?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I feel bad for them too, and it makes me angry, that we don't incentivize people to get healthy. We just have this fat tolerance kind of mindset. But B, that our systems, you know, the FDA, and I've said this before, but I hate the Food and Drug Administration. I hate big agro, big pharma, all these companies that subsist off of people's unhealthiness. You know, I think the average American takes 2 prescription drugs for the rest of their life. And, you know, that's just average. People take a lot more than that, I think. And they just subsist off these drugs because the government and the FDA and the big pharma and big agro have made this system that keeps people perpetually sick. We have a system that says that, you know, eggs fried in butter is less healthy than like processed cereal.
Go eat your McDonald's.
Or Beyond Meat. That stuff is nasty.
Beyond Meat.
Disgusting.
Ridiculous that we even are allowed to call it meat. Just Eggs. Have your Just Eggs.
Just Eggs. I hate Just Eggs, dude. Just Eggs drives me insane. I hate Just Eggs for 2 reasons. Because the name is like this double entendre. Not only is it like Just Eggs as if it is only eggs. It's not only eggs. It's this whole cavalcade of processed chemicals that just mimic the God-given nutrition found in a chicken's egg. So it's not only not just eggs, but the whole idea of it calling it Just Egg is this like climate cult sense of justice. Like they think that it's eating it is more just than eating what God gave us. And so you're pumping your body with all these dyes and chemicals and preservatives and seed oils to make yourself like corroding your insides off of some arbitrary sense of justice because we've removed God from everything down to the food we eat. But
yeah, justice is when you have to poison yourself because if you don't, then you'll eat more actually good stuff and then you'll fart and then it'll make the sun god, the sun monster, make the planet hotter. That's why you can't eat meat.
Yeah, and then we have to sacrifice our children.
True.
Because we have this, you know, overpopulation problem that doesn't actually exist. But you know, we're so civilized and secularized. You know, we're so rational nowadays that we still sacrifice our children to the weather gods to make the weather change. Yeah, we'll do one more here. This is looks like a veteran, World War II veteran being yelled at by all these teens. As the media likes to call them.
Gifted schoolboys. It makes me upset because, like, have you seen that video of the World War II vet? And then he's like walking down the street, and then in the background there's like all of these total degenerate people who are like clearly millennials, but they're like, you know, protesting for like trans stuff, and they're like, trans lives matter, and doing all these provocative dances. Man, them boys died for this. It's super
do you think
sad.
they would have sworn the beaches of Normandy knowing this is what they were about to die for?
Yeah, I clearly don't think that they... Dude, I mean, this is the greatest class of men that like America's ever seen.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I think that they're very harsh on them just knowing the consequences of World War II and how, you know, really as America we shouldn't have been involved. That's not those men's fault though. Like we should really aspire to emulate them and their bravery that we just really don't have anymore. And we're just, even though the people in this painting and the people like them are just, you know, they're totally disrespectful to anything and everything. I think even us as conservatives sometimes can be overly critical and just ungrateful, really. For the people that came before us instead of trying to emulate them, even though...
Yeah, no, this is the greatest generation. It's literally the greatest generation. That's what it's called. Yeah. It's the greatest class of men that's ever, like, that we've seen in our lifetime. They're amazing. And you know, I don't have any tolerance for any conservative who's like, oh, you know, they weren't super based because they gave up things. You know, you have no idea what you're talking about, brother.
Yeah.
Sorry. And like, because honestly, like, too, what this photo talks about, like what it's speaking to me about is just like that we hate the past. We always look at the past as like so uncivilized. It's so much lesser than us. You know, we're so evolved now. We're enlightened in the ways that like anybody before us wasn't. I don't know, we let black people burn down cities with no consequences. We're super enlightened, right? And we kill
Mm-hmm.
65 million babies in something years. We're so civilized, aren't we? Clearly we're not, because things are not better. Things are not better for people. People are so disconnected from God, because like truly civilization and peace and justice and all of the virtues come from God. And without that, we don't have anything, and we don't have that connection with God right now, and that's why we have no virtues.
Yeah, I mean, I think if this shows us anything, and the other paintings that we talked about show us anything, is that we need to be connected to each other. We need to be connected to a community. We need to be connected to the past and the people that came before us, you know, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, if we're blessed enough to still have them around. But this atomization, this individual sort of mindset is not sustainable, and that's not how God made us. We're made to be in fellowship with one another, and we're made to proclaim the gospel. And we need to have a society conducive to that. When you have just this rampant multiculturalism where people don't agree on even the most basic truths, it's very difficult to have that, and it makes people want to be shut-ins. So we need to strive, I think, to recreate this American excellence that Rockwell depicts. And I think we do that by standing up for our values, being connected with each other, being strengthened by our connections with our family, you know, to each other and to our past. And we do it all through a moral framework that used to be pervasive in this country, and that's one derived from God, from Scripture. Because if we just continue with this multicultural polytheism, where we don't agree on anything and we don't have any shared basis for anything, then, you know, what's going to be left of us in 50 years?
Absolutely nothing. Couldn't have said it better myself. And yeah, I mean, the whole atomization thing is really what we need to combat, and we need to put Christ back in the center of every aspect of our lives, and our families, in our institutions, in just everywhere where we have influence. Like nowadays, you know, like the phenomenon of like families where they'll be, like, we're so individualized. And Tocqueville pointed this out in Democracy in America. Like we have this culture where we're so individualized, where people eventually will just view themselves as so much of an individual that they'll like not talk to certain members of their family who aren't, you know, good for their mental health or whatever. Where you have like families who like literally just like won't talk to their brothers and sisters just because they don't agree with them on politics or something, or you know, they're racist, they're homophobic or whatever. Like that's such a crazy phenomenon to me. And that's because like they're not rooted in Christ. You can't have that sort of division when you're rooted in Christ, and when your family is rooted in that common identity in Christ. Politics is whatever. You know, whatever our views are, we're all united in our communion with the Lord.
Amen. Couldn't have said it better myself. And I think practically the way that we stay connected, the way that we have a strong community, is by having our cities, our societies centered around the church. And I think that requires the church to step up as an institution and facilitate that kind of connection. We have a lot of churches, I think, that are split up and decentralized and, you know, not as involved in the community. And of course, there are some great churches that are doing this really well. But we used to have cities and towns centered around that. And I think it's going to be hard to see things improve if we don't return to that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I need the Jaws video on city planning.
On city planning, that might have to go on the list after the architecture video.
Yes, dude, that'd be great.
That's what's so funny about these, you know, frankly, these midwit leftists who talk about city planning and walkable cities, is they don't realize, you know, the root problems of why our cities are the way they are. They don't realize that there's a reason that, you know, our trains couldn't run on time, but they run on time in Italy and Japan. Yeah. And you know, they don't want to have anything to do with churches, I'm sure, but they'll see. There used to be a way we did things, and you know, we can do it again. We're going to do it again.
Yeah. we really have to emphasize that this is coming back. We're gonna bring it all
Yeah.
back. Things are gonna be great again.
Any closing thoughts?
Yes, stay in the Word. Everybody should always stay in the Word. Take time to focus on your relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
And exercise control over what you have control over. Don't get too flustered and too black-pilled, because things are going to be all great. And as long as things, you have exercise over your life and your relationship with God. So make sure you put your time into good use.
And hey, if the situation was hopeless, the propaganda would be useless. So
True.
we will be returning to the Rockwell America. Maybe it might not look exactly the same, but that spirit of excellence, that spirit of striving to be greater together will return once again. And that's what we're all about here. So appreciate everybody for watching. Go check out Mr. Carson Wolf. He makes some excellent content. I'll definitely link his channel in the description. I appreciate you all for watching. May God bless you. May God bless America.